All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're looking at Clean Science and Technology Ltd.
Yeah, they've got some big goals, becoming like a major player in specialty chemicals, right?
Exactly, but can they actually pull it off? That's what we're trying to figure out. We've got their Q3 financials for fiscal year 25. We've got the transcript from their earnings call,
And a few
and
questions of our own, I think.
definitely some burning questions. Okay, so we know sustainability is a big focus for them. Everyone's talking about it these days,
But
but
what's interesting to me, at least, it's not just talk with them. It's like their whole approach is built around these catalytic processes.
okay, so less waste, more efficient, that kind of thing.
More than that, actually. It's like they're really innovating at a core level. They develop their own proprietary technologies.
Ah, so it's not just buying off-the-shelf solutions, they're really pushing the envelope.
Exactly. And
If
that's got to impact their bottom line, right? I mean, it gives them a cost advantage, and customers these days, they want sustainable sourcing.
makes sense. So it's smart business, it's good for the planet.
Yeah, and it helps them stand out, in a crowded market. And speaking of standing out, their Q3 results show some pretty impressive revenue growth, mostly driven by volume, too.
Yeah, almost 19% year over year.
It's pretty remarkable.
But is that sustainable? I mean, the earnings call highlights their HLS product line as a big winner, but
Right, what if demand for that shifts? Are they too reliant on one product? It's a valid question.
so what are they doing? I mean, to mitigate that, are they diversifying?
Oh, yeah, they are. And they're doing it strategically. For example, they launched DHDT. It's a pharmaceutical intermediate used in manufacturing lamivudine, which is an HIV drug.
Wow. Okay, pharma, that's a whole other world. It's really hard to break into, isn't it?
Yeah, lots of regulations, tough competition.
So what makes them think they can compete?
They're banking on their quality, their ability to scale up manufacturing, and their cost competitiveness. Plus, this move, it kind of plays into the whole make in India thing.
Ah, right. Import substitution. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not neglecting their existing markets either. They launched BHT this quarter, strengthens their position in antioxidants.
So it's like a two-pronged approach, new high-value areas like pharma and
And solidifying their dominance where they're already strong.
smart. But this expansion has to be costing them, right? What's their capital expenditure look like?
They're definitely investing. A lot of their capital expenditure this year is going towards their subsidiary, Clean Phytochem Ltd. And here's where it gets really interesting. They're developing barbituric acid.
And why is that so interesting?
It's not currently manufactured in India.
Ah, so import substitution again. But is this risky? I mean, they're going up against some big global players, don't they?
For sure. But remember those proprietary catalytic processes. That's a big part of their strategy.
Right, efficient, sustainable. So it's good for the environment and it appeals to customers who care about that too.
Exactly. And it's not just about good intentions. Their financials tell a really interesting story.
Okay, spill the beans. What's so interesting?
They've actually managed to strengthen their EBITDA margins, and they're completely debt-free.
Wow, debt-free in this day and age.
Yeah, pretty remarkable, right? Especially with all these big growth plans they have.
So how are they doing it? What's their secret?
Well, they're really good at managing costs. I mean, even small things like a dip in coal prices impacting their power costs. It's all in the earnings call.
Wow, they're leaving no stone unturned. So efficient, innovative, and financially savvy. But there has to be something they're not telling us. What potential challenges do you see?
Well, despite their strong performance, they're not immune to the bigger picture. I mean, rising inflation, for example, that's a worry for anyone.
Right. Any business can be affected by that.
Exactly. And, potential supply chain issues that could squeeze their margins.
Yeah, that's true. But what about challenges that are specific to their industry? The transcript mentioned competition from BASF and some Chinese companies in the HALS market.
It's definitely something to watch. Those are some big players with a lot of resources.
So how do they stack up against that kind of competition?
Well, they're playing up their geographic advantage, especially for customers who are looking for alternatives to Chinese suppliers.
So they're the reliable non-China option. But for how long? I mean, the market's always changing, right? What's their long game?
They've outlined a few key areas like significant capital expenditure, always developing new products, and really pushing global expansion.
So they're not just riding the wave, they're trying to control the direction.
Exactly.
Okay, they're ambitious, no doubt. But ambition alone doesn't guarantee anything. What concrete signs are there that they can actually achieve these goals?
Well, their focus on high-value products, ones with, limited global manufacturers, that gives them a strategic edge.
Yeah, less competition, potentially higher profits.
Right. And they're investing heavily in R&D, like really pushing to be at the forefront.
And they seem genuine about sustainability, too. Expanding their solar capacity, that's not just talk. But there's one thing that keeps nagging at me. The transcript really focuses on the HALS products. It's
Yeah.
almost like they're putting all their eggs in one basket.
It's definitely something to consider. Their success with HALS is undeniable, but yeah, a balanced portfolio is key.
So it's a balancing act, capitalizing on their strengths while diversifying and innovating.
Exactly.
It's a tall order, but their track record suggests they just might pull it off.
I think so too. They're performing well, they're making smart investments. It's a good combination.
All right, so we've got a good overview of their strategy and performance, but we haven't really dug into their financials yet. What jumps out at you?
Well, the revenue from operations, it's up about 19% year on year.
Yeah, that's not bad considering the economic climate.
Exactly. It shows healthy growth.
But revenue isn't everything. What about their profitability?
That's the thing. Their EBITDA margin for the quarter is sitting at a solid 44.8%.
Okay, so they are making money. That's good. But what about their revenue stream? Is it diversified or is it all coming from one place?
Their investor presentation actually breaks that down. For the 9 months ending December 31st, 2024, performance chemicals were about 69% of the revenue.
Okay, so still pretty heavily reliant on that one segment.
Yeah, then it's pharma and agro-intermediates at 18%, and then FMCG chemicals at 13%.
So they are trying to diversify, but they still have a ways to go. What about geographically? Where's all this revenue coming from?
For those same 9 months, exports were 68% of their revenue.
So not just a domestic player?
No, definitely not. Domestic sales were the other 32%.
Okay, so pretty well spread out. Any particular regions standing out?
Europe's their biggest market, about 35% of revenue. Then the Americas at 22%, China at 18%, and then the rest of the world makes up the other 10%.
So a decent spread. That diversification, both in terms of product and geography, seems to be key for them. But are they sacrificing profitability to achieve that?
Well, let's look at their statement of unaudited standalone financial results. Their profit before tax, the PBT, it's been consistently increasing over the last 3 quarters.
Okay, that's good. So it suggests they're managing things well, at least operationally. But what about their margins?
EBITDA margin's been pretty stable, between 42.1% and 44.8% over those 3 quarters.
So they're staying profitable even while they're expanding. That's a good sign. What about net profit margin?
Around 31-32% for the same period.
Okay, healthy margins. Suggests they're efficient and making a good return on sales.
Exactly.
So they're growing, they're profitable, and they're diversifying. It's almost too good to be true.
Right.
But we still have those prepped questions to go through. What do we got?
Well, one is about any big changes in their operating expenses or capital expenditures. And while we don't have specific details on the expenses, the earnings call transcript does give us some hints.
Okay, anything noteworthy?
They mentioned that coal prices dropped a bit, which helped lower their power and fuel costs this quarter.
It seems minor, but
But for a chemical manufacturer, energy costs can be a big deal. Managing those effectively, that's big for their bottom line.
makes sense. Any other changes worth mentioning?
Yeah, they decided to stop producing PBQ, having some quality issues with it.
Interesting.
So they're going to use that equipment to manufacture barbituric acid instead.
Oh, right, the product that's not currently made in India.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Shows they're willing to adapt and pivot when they need to.
Absolutely. What about their overall CapEx spending? Did they say anything about that?
Yeah, around 160 crore rupees in the first 9 months of fiscal year 25, mostly for investments in Clean Phenochem Ltd.
Yeah, makes sense. With their focus on expanding production and developing new products. But speaking of, one of the other questions is about their stock performance. We can't predict the future, obviously, but what do you think? How might investors react to these results?
Well, their financials are strong, the investments they're making, their commitment to sustainability, it's all attractive to investors.
Sure.
But stock prices are influenced by so many things.
Absolutely. It's a complex game.
It is.
But you have to admit, their earnings growth, their margins, their debt-free balance sheet, it all makes them a pretty attractive prospect, especially when so many companies are struggling.
I agree. They're definitely doing a lot of things right.
Okay, so financials are solid, strategy seems sound, they're making the right moves to grow. But there's one big thing we haven't really talked about yet, their commitment to ESG.
Ah, yes. That's not just a buzzword for them. It's built into everything they do. They've got those zero liquid discharge facilities, the expanded solar capacity.
Right. It's not just talk. They're backing it up with action. But what impact are these initiatives actually having?
Well, there are tangible benefits, of course. Sustainable manufacturing reduces their environmental impact, and it appeals to customers and investors who care about that.
Makes sense. It's good for business and good for the planet.
Exactly. But they're also going beyond just reducing harm. They're actively creating social value.
Okay, how so?
Planting trees, supporting community development programs, promoting diversity and inclusion within their workforce.
So it's a really holistic approach.
Yeah, considering the environmental, the social, the economic aspects, all of it.
But how does this tie back to their financials?
Well, their financials suggest it's actually enhancing their profitability by reducing waste, improving efficiency, attracting those environmentally conscious customers.
So win-win, really. Good for the planet, good for their employees and the community, good for their shareholders.
Exactly. They're proving that sustainability and profitability aren't mutually exclusive.
All right, so we've covered a lot. Their financials, their strategy, their commitment to ESG, their growth plans. But I'm curious, what are your key takeaways from all of this?
For me, it's their unwavering commitment to innovation. They're not just content with where they are, they're constantly pushing the boundaries, developing new technologies, exploring new markets.
I agree. Their focus on those proprietary catalytic processes, it's a prime example. It gives them a competitive edge, and it allows them to manufacture in a way that's both efficient and sustainable.
And they're really strategic about focusing on high-value products, those with limited global manufacturers.
Yeah, higher margins, less competition.
Exactly. And you can't overlook their commitment to making a positive impact. Their ESG initiatives are truly embedded in everything they do.
Absolutely. They're walking the walk, not just talking the talk. But the question is, can they keep this up? What potential challenges or opportunities do you see for them going forward?
Well, the specialty chemicals industry is a tough business. It's constantly changing. So they're going to need to stay vigilant, adapt to new market conditions and technologies.
Right, but they've shown they can adapt, they've overcome challenges, they've diversified, expanded.
They have, that's true.
So what specifically should they be doing to ensure their continued success? What should they focus on in the coming quarters?
Well, they need to stay ahead of the game in terms of innovation. They're already investing heavily in R&D, but it needs to be aligned with emerging trends, new technologies.
So not just innovating for the sake of it, but innovating in the right direction.
Exactly. They need to be developing the things that customers will want tomorrow, not just today. And they need to keep expanding globally.
Right, but global expansion can be tricky. It's not just about selling more. It's about managing costs effectively while maintaining quality and, staying true to their sustainability goals.
For sure. They've shown they can manage costs well, but they need to keep finding ways to optimize and improve efficiency. Maybe invest in new tech, streamline their supply chain, explore different sourcing options.
Okay, so innovation, global expansion, cost management, anything else?
Their company culture, that's a big one. They need to nurture that.
That sense of diversity, inclusion, collaboration, it seems to be a real asset for them.
Yeah, and they need to make sure it stays strong as they grow.
Yeah.
Because a strong culture, it can attract and retain talent. It can create a sense of shared purpose. It can be a real competitive advantage.
Absolutely. And they need to be proactive about managing risk. That means staying informed about regulations, geopolitical stuff, and having plans in place for unexpected events.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but
But they seem up to the task.
I think so too.
They've got the vision, the strategy, the execution.
They're a compelling example of how innovation, sustainability, and strategic thinking, how it can all come together to drive success.
Well said. All right, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored Clean Science and Technology Ltd's financial performance, their strategic initiatives, their ESG commitment, their overall growth prospects. But I want to leave our listeners with one final thought-provoking question to ponder.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
We've seen how well they've performed, we've talked about their ambitious plans, but what if the game changes? What if something completely unexpected happens?
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the present and forget that the future is always uncertain.
Exactly. So let's say there's a major technological disruption, or a new competitor comes out of nowhere with a game-changing product. How would Clean Science and Technology Ltd respond?
Well, their ability to adapt and innovate would be crucial. They've shown they're willing to embrace new technologies, explore new markets, but they'd need to be even faster, even more agile.
And they'd need to rely on their strong leadership and that collaborative culture to navigate those challenges effectively.
Absolutely. Strong leadership can provide direction and stability when things get tough, and a collaborative culture allows people to work together to find solutions, to be creative.
So while Clean Science and Technology Ltd has achieved a lot, their journey is far from over.
That's the truth.
The future holds both challenges and opportunities, and it will be interesting to see how they navigate this constantly evolving landscape.
I agree. Their story is a great reminder that success is a journey, not a destination. And the companies that thrive are those that can adapt, innovate, and embrace change.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, we've delved deep into the world of Clean Science and Technology Ltd, but now it's time to shift gears and take a closer look at the heart of their operations, their manufacturing processes, and the technologies that set them apart.
Sounds good to me. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and see what makes them tick.
Let's do it.
Yeah, their manufacturing processes, they really set them apart in the specialty chemicals world.
You're talking about those catalytic processes, right? I'm still trying to wrap my head around why they're such a big deal.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff, actually.
Break it down for me and for our listeners who might not be chemistry experts.
Okay, so think of it this way. Most chemical reactions, they need a little push to get going, kind of like needing a spark to start a fire. Catalysts, they provide that push, make the reactions happen faster and more efficiently.
Okay, so they're like the accelerators in the chemical world.
Exactly. And the best part is, they're not used up in the reaction. So you can use them again and again. Less energy, less waste. It's a more sustainable and cost-effective process overall.
So it's not just about being eco-friendly, it's good business sense.
Exactly. Hitting both birds with one stone. And Clean Science and Technology Ltd., they haven't just adopted existing processes, they've developed their own proprietary technologies.
Oh, so it's like their secret weapon.
In a way, yeah. Gives them a real edge over the competition.
Okay, so they're not just following the crowd, they're innovating. But how does that actually benefit their customers? Beyond just, the feel-good factor of knowing it's made sustainably.
Well, for one, it allows them to offer high-quality products at competitive prices. And in a market where cost is always a concern, that's a huge advantage. Plus, more and more companies are prioritizing sustainability in their supply chains. So Clean Science and Technology Ltd's approach, it puts them in a really strong position.
So they're ahead of the curve, basically, anticipating what customers will want down the line.
Precisely. They're not just reacting, they're actively shaping the market.
I see. Okay, let's talk about their HALS product line, the one that's been performing so well. We know they have a lot of capacity for those products, but how did they get to be so dominant? It's not like they invented HALS, right?
No, HALS has been around for a while, but they've figured out how to produce it better, faster, and more sustainably than anyone else.
Okay, so they found the magic formula.
You could say that, and a big part of it goes back to those catalytic processes we talked about.
Right. But it must be more than just efficient production. What else is part of their strategy?
Well, they've been really smart about choosing specific applications for their HALS products, focusing on areas where they can provide unique benefits, like UV stabilization in polymers, which is crucial for a lot of industries.
So they're not just selling a product, they're selling a solution to a problem. And that's clearly been working for them. But let's talk about profitability. One of our questions is about what's driving those impressive margins. We've mentioned their efficient manufacturing and their smart product focus, but are there other factors involved?
Definitely their cost management strategies. They're incredibly disciplined about controlling expenses, even down to tracking things like changes in coal prices that affect their energy costs.
Wow, attention to detail.
It makes a difference, and it shows in their healthy profit margins.
Okay, so efficient, strategic, and cost-conscious. Now let's talk about this move into pharmaceuticals. That's a big change, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Pharma's a whole different world with strict regulations and high barriers to entry. But they seem determined to make it work.
They've got that DHDT product, right? The one used to make Lamudine, the HIV drug. What makes them think they can compete in such a complex market?
Well, they're bringing their strengths to the table. That commitment to quality, the ability to scale up manufacturing, their cost competitiveness.
Makes sense.
Plus, they've got a proven track record of regulatory compliance, which is essential in pharma.
Right. So they're serious about this, not just testing the waters. But what kind of challenges do you see them facing?
Well, the competition is intense, to say the least. They're going up against some major players with deep pockets and tons of experience in that industry.
It's going to be a tough battle.
I
And
know.
then there are all the risks with bringing a new drug to market.
True. It's not easy, but they're not afraid to take calculated risks. And this also plays into their import substitution strategy.
Right, making products that are currently imported. It's a smart move, both for their business and for India as a whole.
Exactly. Developing products like barbituric acid, which isn't currently made in India, it creates new revenue for them
Uh-huh.
and helps India become more self-reliant.
Okay, so expanding, focusing on import substitution, all while staying profitable. But what about their investments in research and development? I know they're spending a lot, but are they seeing results?
R&D, it's a long game.
Mm.
You don't always see immediate returns, but their investment shows they're thinking about the future, not just the present.
Planting the seeds for future growth.
Exactly, and they're focusing on several key areas. They're constantly refining their catalytic processes, making them even more efficient, more sustainable.
So always improving, always pushing the boundaries.
Right. They're also exploring new chemistries, new process technologies, which could lead to entirely new product lines down the road.
That's exciting, always pushing the envelope. But R&D is only part of the equation. Let's talk about the people. The sources highlight the experience of their promoters and board members. How important do you think leadership is, especially in such a fast-paced industry?
It's essential. In an industry like this, leaders set the tone, inspire their teams, and guide everyone through challenges and opportunities.
Clean Science and Technology Ltd, they seem to have a pretty solid leadership team.
They do. Experienced people, deep industry knowledge, a board with diverse expertise. It's a good mix. And from what we've seen, they've cultivated a culture of innovation, collaboration, and putting the customer first.
All crucial ingredients for success, for sure, especially in such a fast-paced environment. Now let's talk about ESG, those environmental, social, and governance factors. It's clear from everything we've seen that Clean Science and Technology Ltd takes this seriously. What are some examples that stand out to you, and how do these efforts contribute to their success?
Well, those zero liquid discharge facilities are a great example. They're treating and reusing wastewater, which minimizes their environmental impact and conserves resources.
Right, and they've also increased their solar capacity.
Exactly. Reducing their reliance on fossil fuels, shrinking their
Bond,
carbon footprint. It's not just words, they're actually doing it, but it goes beyond just minimizing harm. They're actively trying to make a positive social impact as well.
Okay, like how?
They're planting thousands of trees, supporting community development programs, promoting diversity and inclusion within their workforce.
So they're really taking a holistic view of sustainability, not just focusing on one aspect.
Yeah, considering the environmental, social, and economic aspects, all three.
And they're walking the walk when it comes to diversity and inclusion in their own workforce, too.
Absolutely. Creating a workplace where everyone feels valued and respected is not just the right thing to do, it's also smart business. And this commitment to ESG, it's becoming a major factor for investors and customers.
Right, companies that ignore these factors are doing so at their own peril.
Exactly. It's becoming a competitive advantage.
Okay, we've talked about manufacturing, their star product, their plans, leadership, ESG. It's a pretty impressive picture. But I'm curious, what do you think are the biggest risks or challenges for Clean Science and Technology Ltd moving forward?
Well, even with their success, they can't escape the realities of the business world. I mean, the global economy is unpredictable. Unexpected things happen.
Sure enough. So what specific risks should they be watching out for?
Well, a global economic downturn, for one. If demand for their products drops, that would impact revenue and profits.
That's a big one and out of their control. What else?
Increased competition. This market is always changing, new players popping up. They need to stay innovative, stay ahead of the tech curve, or they'll lose their edge.
No room for complacency. And what about their supply chain? Disruptions happen. We've seen it recently. How vulnerable are they to that?
That's a good point. They rely on a global network of suppliers, so any disruptions could definitely affect production and their ability to meet demand. They need strong risk management strategies to handle that.
So they need to be prepared, have backup plans.
Absolutely. Be proactive, not reactive.
Okay, external risks. Got it.
Hmm.
But what about internal challenges? Anything within the company that could potentially hold them back?
Well, scaling their operations effectively. They've been growing fast, and as they move into new markets and add new products, they need to make sure their infrastructure, their systems can keep up.
Right. Growing too fast can create its own problems. Anything else?
Attracting and retaining top talent. As they grow, they'll be competing for the best people in the industry.
Not an easy task, especially in a specialized field like this.
No, they need to create a workplace that people want to be a part of.
Mm.
Somewhere with opportunities for growth, professional development, a sense of purpose.
So build a strong brand as an employer, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, manage growth, attract talent, mitigate risks. Anything else?
They have to stay true to their values. Their focus on sustainability, innovation, putting the customer first, that's been key to their success. They need to make sure those values remain central, even as they grow and change.
That's a great point. It's easy to lose sight of those things when you're focused on expansion and profits.
It is, but it's important to remember those values, they're what make a company unique.
All right, we've covered a lot in this segment. Their manufacturing, their products, their plans, leadership, ESG, the risks they face. But before we move on, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
Clean Science and Technology Ltd. They've shown they can adapt, they can thrive in a dynamic market. They're innovative, strategic, committed to sustainability. But the business world is unpredictable. The question is, are they ready for whatever comes next?
Tough question. No one can predict the future, but
Yeah.
based on what we've seen,
Yeah.
I think they're in a good position. They've got the ingredients for success, the right leadership, a dedicated workforce, a focus on innovation, and a deep understanding of the market. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
It always is in the business world. That's part of what makes it so fascinating. All right, let's shift gears now and talk about their growth strategy. We've touched on it, but let's dive deeper into those plans.
Sure, their growth strategy, it's multifaceted, but it comes down to three main things: innovation, expansion, and sustainability. They're always looking for ways to improve, they're actively pursuing new markets, and they're committed to being responsible and sustainable.
Sounds like a balanced approach, but let's unpack that a bit. Starting with innovation, what are they doing to stay ahead of the curve?
Well, their R&D efforts are a big part of it. They've got a dedicated team constantly exploring new chemistries, new technologies, refining their processes.
And it's targeted R&D, right? Focused on what customers need, what the market demands.
Exactly. They're not just innovating for the sake of it. They're innovating with a purpose.
All right, so R&D is a priority, but what about expansion? What are their plans for reaching new markets, growing their global presence?
They're doing it in a couple of ways. Organically, by building their distribution network and strengthening relationships with key customers, and then strategically looking at acquisitions, partnerships, anything that can get them into new markets or give them access to new technologies.
So a mix of organic growth and strategic moves. And they're not limiting themselves geographically.
Right. They're a truly global company with a presence in Europe, the Americas, Asia, all over.
And it's not just geographical expansion, they're diversifying their products too.
Absolutely. Moving into pharmaceuticals is a perfect example.
Okay, so innovating, expanding, but where does sustainability fit into all of this?
It's not just an afterthought. It's fundamental to their business strategy. They believe operating sustainably is the right thing to do, A&D essential for long-term success.
So it's about more than just reducing their environmental impact, it's about creating value for everyone involved.
Exactly. Their customers, their employees, the communities they operate in, everyone. They're taking a holistic approach and always looking for ways to improve.
All right, so their growth strategy makes sense. But what about the competition? It's a crowded market. How are they standing out?
Their commitment to innovation and sustainability, that's a big differentiator. They're not just following trends, they're setting them.
And their proprietary technologies, those catalytic processes we talked about, those give them a real edge.
For sure. They're creating their own solutions, not just buying what everyone else has.
And they're not afraid to invest in R&D, take risks, push the boundaries.
Exactly. Always striving to improve, always thinking long term.
Okay, so they're innovative, they're strategic, they're sustainable, they're willing to take risks. But let's be realistic, the global economy isn't exactly stable right now. How are they navigating these challenges? Inflation, supply chain issues, all of that.
Well, they're definitely not ignoring those challenges. They have a strong leadership team that's always monitoring the situation, developing strategies.
But it's not just about reacting, it's about being proactive, building resilience.
That's right. They're focusing on strengthening their supply chains, diversifying their products, optimizing costs.
So preparing for the worst while hoping for the best.
Exactly. Not leaving anything to chance.
All right, aware of the challenges, taking steps to address them. But what about the future? What does the road ahead look like for them?
It's always hard to say for sure, but I think they're well positioned.
Yeah.
They've got a clear vision, a solid strategy, a strong team, but they can't get complacent.
Right. No resting on their laurels.
Exactly. They need to stick to their values, keep innovating, keep adapting to the market. And they need to tell their story, make sure investors and customers understand what they're all about.
It's a good story. They just need to make sure people hear it. Okay, we've talked about growth strategy, competitive advantages, challenges, the road ahead. But now I want to talk about something less tangible, their company culture.
Oh, interesting. What about it?
Well, everything we've seen suggests they have a really strong, positive culture, focused on innovation, collaboration, keeping customers happy. But how do you build that and how do you maintain it, especially in a company that's growing so fast?
It's not easy, that's for sure. But it starts at the top.
Yeah.
Leadership needs to set the tone, create an environment where everyone feels valued, respected, empowered.
Lead by example, right? Walk the talk.
Exactly. And you need to communicate those values clearly and consistently, both inside and outside the company.
So it's more than just words on a page. It's about how you operate every single day.
That's it. And you need to create a space where people can collaborate, be creative, be innovative.
Give them the tools, the resources, the environment to do their best work.
Exactly. And celebrate successes, recognize people's contributions, learn from mistakes.
Create a culture of continuous improvement.
Precisely. And make sure everyone feels like they're part of something bigger, working towards a common goal.
That sense of purpose, that sense of belonging, it's so important.
It is. And when you can do that, that's when you see really amazing things happen.
And it seems like Clean Science and Technology Ltd is doing that.
They are. And it's a big reason why they're so successful.
Okay, so we've covered their growth strategy, competitive advantages, challenges, the road ahead, company culture.
Yeah.
But now I want to shift gears and ask you something a bit more personal.
Okay, I'm curious. What is it?
Throughout this whole deep dive, we've been looking at them objectively, analyzing data, that kind of thing. But I want to hear your gut feeling. What do you think about this company? What's your sense of their potential?
That's a good question. And honesty. I'm impressed. They have a solid track record, ambitious goals, and they're executing well.
So you're optimistic about their future?
I am. But it's more than just the numbers. It's their values. I like what they're trying to do, and I think they're doing it the right way.
So it's a combination of the data A&D, a feeling about who they are.
Exactly. Both are important.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. What does their story tell us about the Indian economy as a whole?
I think their success is a sign of how much the Indian economy is growing and becoming more sophisticated.
Right, it's not just about succeeding in India, they're competing globally and winning.
Exactly, in a very competitive, technologically advanced sector, too.
It's not just about low-cost manufacturing anymore, it's about innovation, technology, sustainability. And Clean Science and Technology Ltd, they're a perfect example of that.
I agree, they really are. Their success shows that India can be a hub for innovation, for cutting-edge technology.
And that Indian companies can compete with the best in the world. So it's a positive story, not just for them, but for India as a whole.
Absolutely. It's a story of growth, innovation, global competitiveness.
But we can't ignore the challenges. India still faces issues with poverty, inequality, infrastructure, education.
True, those are real problems.
But companies like Clean Science and Technology Ltd, they show what's possible with a clear vision, strong leadership, commitment to innovation and sustainability.
I agree. They're setting an example for others to follow, showing the world what India can do.
All right, we've covered a lot. Growth strategy, their advantages, challenges, the road ahead, company culture, what their success says about India. But I want to shift gears again to something a bit more forward-looking. We've seen how well they've done and what they're doing now. But what about the really long term? 5, 10, 20 years down the line? What will the specialty chemicals world look like then? And how will Clean Science and Technology Ltd adapt?
It is a fascinating question, though.
It is, isn't it?
Trying to predict the future, especially in an industry like this.
Yeah, specialty chemicals, it's always evolving.
It is. But I think there are some trends we can look at, things that are likely to shape the industry going forward.
Okay, I'm all ears. What do you see on the horizon?
Well, one of the biggest is the demand for sustainable, eco-friendly products. Consumers are way more aware of the environmental impact these days.
It's not just a niche thing anymore, it's mainstream.
Exactly. And companies that don't get on board, they're going to get left behind.
So, Clean Science and Technology Ltd, they're in a good spot then with their focus on sustainable manufacturing.
They are. They've got a good foundation, and they're investing in R&D to create even more sustainable solutions.
So they're not just keeping up, they're pushing ahead. What else? What other trends are we looking at?
The rise of digital technologies, that's a big one. AI, machine learning, the Internet of Things, it's changing everything.
Absolutely. We're already seeing companies use those technologies to, improve processes, create new products, even enhance customer experience.
Exactly. And Clean Science and Technology Ltd, they're not shying away from that either. They've got digital initiatives in place, and they're exploring new ways to use these technologies to their advantage.
So they're on board with the digital revolution. That's good. What other trends are shaping the industry?
Globalization, that's another big one that's not going anywhere. Sourcing raw materials, manufacturing, selling products, it's all happening on a global scale now.
Right, which creates opportunities, but also some headaches.
Definitely. Companies need to be able to handle global trade, adapt to different cultures and regulations, and compete with companies from all over the world.
It sounds like a lot to juggle.
It is. But Clean Science and Technology Ltd, they seem to be doing pretty well so far. They've got a good foothold in several key markets, and they're expanding strategically.
Okay, so they're globally minded. So to sum it up, sustainability, digitalization, globalization, those are the big trends shaping the specialty chemicals industry. How do these trends translate into concrete challenges and opportunities for Clean Science and Technology Ltd?
Well, one challenge is staying at the forefront of technology. New digital tools are coming out all the time. Clean Science and Technology Ltd needs to be able to adopt them quickly and effectively. If they don't,
They risk falling behind.
exactly. And managing a global supply chain, that's another challenge. They need to make sure they have reliable, sustainable sources for their materials, deal with global trade issues, tariffs, that kind of thing.
And they have to be able to navigate different regulations in different countries.
Absolutely. But these challenges also create opportunities, like the demand for sustainable products. That's a chance for Clean Science and Technology Ltd to stand out by offering those high-quality, eco-friendly options.
Right, and digital technologies can help them be more efficient, improve the customer experience.
Exactly. And globalization opens up new markets for them to explore.
So it's a balancing act, but it sounds like the opportunities might outweigh the challenges.
I think so. They've got a good track record, a clear vision, they're executing well.
But they can't get complacent, right?
Definitely not. They have to stay focused, keep innovating, and be ready to adapt. The specialty chemicals industry is always moving, and if you stand still, you get left behind.
Truer words have never been spoken. All right, it's been a fascinating deep dive. We've covered their financials, their strategy, their commitment to sustainability, their manufacturing processes, the future of the industry. Our listeners have gotten a real inside look at this company and its potential.
It's been a pleasure discussing this with you. They have a compelling story.
They do. And before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought to consider.
Okay, shoot.
We've talked about their recent performance, their plans for the future, but it all comes down to execution, right? Being able to navigate whatever challenges come their way.
Absolutely. A good plan is important, but you need the right people, the right culture, the right mindset to make it happen.
Couldn't agree more. It's about having a team that's passionate, dedicated, able to adapt, a culture that embraces innovation, collaboration, always looking for ways to improve, and a leadership team that can inspire, make tough decisions, and guide the company in the right direction.
And never losing sight of your values, your purpose, your commitment to making a positive impact.
Clean Science and Technology Ltd's story shows us that business can be a force for good,
Yeah.
that you can be successful financially, and make a difference in the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's inspiring to see.
It is. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Clean Science and Technology Ltd.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.